Okay, so speaking of panic, I'm going to tell you a story about being a teacher. And one of my students is actually here tonight, so this is double. I hope this story is you weren't in this class. So, which is absolutely true. So if you teach 7th and 8th period at the end of the school day, it's really exhausting. Just those last two back to back. So this one year, several years back, I'm teaching 7th and 8th period back to back, and my 7th period ends, and I slump into my chair at my desk, and I take a couple deep breaths, as I often do between 7th and 8th period, to collect myself for 8th period. And one of my students from 8th period walks into my classroom. She bends over, picks something up off the ground, walks it over to me, and hands me, and she says, "This was on the ground." What she handed me was a dime bag of marijuana. Now, what do you do as a teacher? What do you do as a teacher when a student hands you a dime bag of marijuana? I have no idea. I've been teaching 15 years. I still have no idea what to do. So I freeze. So I'm just holding this dime bag of marijuana, sitting at my desk. Now my 8th period class is walking in, and to be honest, my 8th grade period class was very rambunctious and energetic class. And for the first time all year, they were quiet, because they were walking into their 11th grade U.S. history class, seeing their teacher holding a dime bag of weed. So you know what you do if you're an 11th grader who sees their teacher holding drugs? Yeah, neither did they. So they freeze, and they freak out, and they quietly sit into their desks. So the bell rings, kind of rings me out of the ether of this, what do I do, what do I do? And I say to my class, I have to go across the hall and give this to the principal. So I walk across the hall, I see a vice principal, I said, "Hey, this was found on my classroom floor last period. I have a class right now, I'll come back at the end of the day and write it up." She says, "That's fine," and I go back across the room, and my room is in full rebellion mode. They are freaking out about the drugs. They are freaking out. So I decide, hey, I'm just gonna collect them, get them calm again, and move on to the content. So I said, "Guys, look, I can see why you're excited, but the first thing that's gonna happen is the police are gonna come, and we don't even know what's in that bag. They're gonna test it to see if it's even drugs." And Chelsea, sitting in the front row, says, "Yeah, I heard the way they test drugs is they light it on fire, and then they smell it." So I have to tell Chelsea that what she just described was smoking pot. So that's that. So now my classroom turns into just full-blown amateur narcotics officers. Everybody in the class, they're naming names. They're saying, "You know what, I bet you it's Billy's pot." I'm like, whoa! It's Billy's pot. It's Lucy's pot. It's Brian's pot. All right, side note, I think it's Brian's pot too, but I can't say anything. So I have to stop this slander. I have to stop the slander of all these kids. So I say to the class, I go, "Guys, it doesn't matter. It's a moot point, because we're never gonna know whose pot it is unless they come back for it. And no one is dumb enough to come back for the drugs." And I swear I'm not lying about this. The moment I put a period on that sentence, the door opens. And for the second time that day, my class is quiet. It wasn't Billy. It wasn't Lucy. It wasn't even Brian. Standing at the door is Emily. Emily is the most petite, quiet, meek student I had all year. And she walks in, except she's not looking at me. She's not looking at the class. She's furiously scanning the floor. And all the students in the classroom look at me, and they look back at Emily. So I set the worst verbal trap of all time. I said, "Emily, is there something I can help you with?" And Emily says, without picking her eyes off the ground, she goes, "I dropped my pencil here last period. It's somewhere on the ground. I'm just looking for it." At which point, every student in the classroom, their head snaps to me. And they mouth, "That's her pot." To which I mouth back, "I know." So I tell Emily, I say, "Emily, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but your pencil is across the hall in the principal's office. So why don't we walk across the hall?" And as Emily looked up from the floor and she made eye contact with me, I've been teaching 15 years now, I've never seen a kid who wanted a panic switch more than that. She was like, any way out? I'm like, nope. And so I walked her across the hall, and that was that. So thank you very much.